The day the HOA's letter arrived, I was in my garage, teaching my son Caleb how to change a tire, a small rite of passage for a 15-year-old who dreamed of driving. The sun was warm, the neighborhood quiet, and for a moment, life in Oak Ridge Meadows felt like the American dream we'd worked so hard for. Then my wife, Naomi, stepped out, her face tight, holding a piece of paper that would shatter that illusion. "Malik, you need to see this," she said, her voice low but sharp. I took the letter, its AO letterhead glaring like a warning. In cold, bureaucratic prose, it demanded we remove Caleb from the community pool, citing a new rule. Only residents with verified property ownership may access amenities. My stomach twisted. We owned our home, paid taxes, followed every rule. This wasn't a mistake, it was a targeted attack, and I knew exactly who was behind it. Her name was Patricia Conway, the HOA president who wielded her gavel like a scepter. From her sprawling ranch house on the hill, she policed Oak Ridge with a zeal that bordered on obsession, fining people for unapproved flower pots, dictating holiday light colors, and enforcing standards that seemed to shift depending on who you were. For 2 years, since we'd moved in as one of the few black families in this suburban enclave, Patricia had watched us like hawks. Her smiles at show meetings were brittle, her comments laced with barbs. "Your lawn's a bit unconventional," she'd say, eyeing Naomi's wildflowers, or "Caleb's basketball games are loud for this neighborhood." The racism was subtle, cloaked in politeness, but it was there, and this pool ban was her boldest move yet, a rule designed to exclude us, to tell us we didn't belong. I crumpled the letter, my pulse steady but my anger a low burn. Caleb looked up from the tire, his eyes searching mine. "Dad, what's wrong?" I forced a calm I didn't feel. "Just some HOA nonsense, son. Nothing we can't handle." But inside, I was raging. The pool was Caleb's sanctuary, where he swam laps to unwind from school, where he'd made friends despite the whispers about his different family. Naomi's voice broke through my thoughts. "They're targeting him, Malik. Our boy?" Her eyes were fire, but there was fear there too. Fear that Oak Ridge, the home we'd poured our savings into, wasn't safe for us. I took her hand. "They're not winning this, I promise." She didn't know the full weight of that promise. Not yet. As an FBI agent, I'd spent a decade building cases against corrupt officials, dismantling scams with precision. Patricia thought she was untouchable, but she just picked a fight with the wrong man. I didn't tell Naomi or Caleb about my job. To them, I was Malik, the dad who coached soccer and grilled on Sundays, not Special Agent Malik Turner, who'd infiltrated fraud rings and testified against kingpins. I'd kept my badge hidden to protect them, to give us a normal life. But now, Patricia's racist rule had crossed a line, and my training kicked in. I started with evidence, pulling our deed from the safe, confirming our ownership in black and white. The HOA's verified ownership rule was a sham, with no basis in their bylaws or state law. I photographed the letter, noting its date and Patricia's signature, and emailed a contact at the FBI's white-collar crime unit, a buddy named Javier who owed me a favor. "Check for HOA fraud in Oak Ridge Meadows," I wrote. "Might be bigger than it looks." That afternoon, I walked to Patricia's house, keeping my demeanor neutral, like I was approaching a suspect before a sting. Her front yard was a shrine to HOA perfection, clipped hedges, a fountain, a president, plaque gleaming on her door. I knocked, and she answered, her smile as fake as her pearls. "Malik, what brings you here?" Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes were cold. I held up the letter. "This pool ban, it says we need to verify ownership. We've owned our home for 2 years. Care to explain?" She blinked, caught off guard, then sighed. "It's a new policy to protect our amenities. Some residents, well, we need to ensure standards." Her pause was deliberate, the racism unspoken but loud. I leaned in, my voice low. "Standards? Or is this about keeping certain people out?" Her smile tightened. "Don't make this personal. Follow the rule, or there'll be consequences." She shut the door, dismissing me like a nuisance. I walked back, her words fueling my resolve. Patricia thought her HOA was a kingdom, her rules law. She didn't know I'd spent years dismantling bigger empires, that I knew how to spot a liar's tells, the way her hands fidgeted, the crack in her voice. Back home, I sat with Naomi, showing her the deed. "This rule's a lie," I said. "They're targeting us, but I'm fighting back." She nodded, but her worry lingered. "Caleb's crushed Malik. He loves that pool. What if they escalate?" I squeezed her hand. "They will. And I'll be ready." I didn't tell her about the sting I was planning, the kind of operation that had taken down crooked CEOs. This was personal, and I wanted Patricia to feel every step of her fall. By evening, I was in my study, mapping the case. Javier texted back, "HOA's financials are fishy. Unreported dues, shady contracts, keep digging." I pulled Oak Ridge's bylaws, finding no mention of verified ownership rules. The pool ban was Patricia's invention, a power grab to exclude families like ours. I thought of Caleb, his swim goggles gathering dust, and the other families she'd targeted. Latinos fined for nosy barbecues, an Indian couple harassed over their mailbox. This wasn't just our fight. It was for every neighbor Patricia had bullied, for the right to belong in a home we'd earned. I called a local civil rights lawyer, Aisha, who'd battled HOAs before. "This smells like discrimination," she said. "File a fair housing complaint." "I'll help." Her voice was a spark, but I wanted more than a complaint. I wanted a sting, public and undeniable, that would expose Patricia's racism and fraud. As I hung up, Caleb knocked, his face serious. "Dad, are we going to lose the pool?" I met his eyes, my training giving way to fatherhood. "No, son. We're taking it back. For you, for us, for everyone." He nodded, and I saw my own defiance in him. Patricia had underestimated us, but she was about to learn what happens when you target an FBI agent's family. I was already wiring the trap, and she was walking right into it. Patricia's door slamming in my face was like a fuse igniting, her smug dismissal confirming what I'd suspected. She wasn't just enforcing rules. She was waging a personal crusade to drive my family out. As an FBI agent, I'd faced down liars and manipulators, from money launderers to corrupt officials, and I knew her type, a bully who thrived on control, banking on fear to keep her throne. But fear wasn't in my playbook. I was already wiring a sting to expose her racism and fraud, and every move she made was another nail in her coffin. Patricia thought she was untouchable, but she was about to learn that targeting my family was the worst mistake of her life. The next morning, her retaliation hit like a storm. I woke to find bright yellow flyers taped to every lamppost in Oak Ridge Meadows, their bold letters screaming, "Protect our community, stop none," "Compliant residents." A grainy photo of our house sat below, with text accusing us of ignoring HOA standards and endangering neighborhood values. The racism was thinly veiled. "We must preserve Oak Ridge's heritage from those who don't fit." Naomi found one on our mailbox, her hands shaking as she handed it to me. "Malik, this is a witch hunt," she said, her voice steady but her eyes blazing. I tore it down, my jaw tight. "She's trying to turn everyone against us. It's not going to work." But the flyers were everywhere, a public smear meant to isolate us, and I knew the neighborhood was watching. By noon, the HOA piled on. An email from Patricia announced new fines: $2,000 for unverified pool access, $1,000 for defacing community aesthetics with our wildflower garden, and a notice bearing Caleb from the pool effective immediately. That evening, we found a padlock on the pool gate, a shiny new chain glinting under the streetlights. Caleb stood there, his swim bag slung over his shoulder, staring at the lock. "They really hate us, don't they?" he said, his voice small. I put my arm around him, my heart breaking. "They hate that we're not backing down, son. But we're gonna fix this." His nod was brave, but the hurt in his eyes lit a fire in me. Patricia wasn't just attacking me, she was stealing my son's joy, and that was a line she'd regret crossing. The harassment didn't stop there. At school, Caleb came home with a bruise on his cheek, the result of a shove from a kid who'd called him a pool thief. Naomi was cornered at the community center by an HOA board member, a guy named Roger, who sneered, "Your kid's causing trouble. Maybe you should move somewhere more your speed." Naomi held her ground, replying, "Our speed." "Like where, Roger?" "Somewhere we're not black." He stormed off, but the encounter left her rattled. That night, someone slashed our garden, trampling Naomi's wildflowers into the dirt. She stood over the wreckage, tears in her eyes. "Malik, how far will they go?" I pulled her close, my voice steady. "As far as they want, but they're digging their own grave." I wasn't fighting alone. I called Javier, my FBI buddy, who dug deeper into Oak Ridge's financials. "Patricia's been skimming dues," he said. "Thousands funneled to a shell company tied to her cousin's construction firm. It's fraud, maybe money laundering." I grinned, picturing the case file growing. I also met with Aisha, the civil rights lawyer who was building our fair housing complaint. "The pool ban's a clear violation," she said. "It targets minority families, yours, the Garcias, the Paddles. I've got Hattie interested." Her words were a spark, but I needed more. I reached out to Mrs. Garcia, a neighbor who'd been fined for her kids. Noisy. Play dates. Patricia called us disruptive. She told me, her voice bitter. "We paid $3,000 to stay. Here's the receipts." Her evidence was dynamite proof of Patricia's racist pattern. Then came a game changer, a whistleblower. Mr. Chen, a retired auditor who'd served on the HOA board, contacted me after seeing the flyers. Over coffee, he handed me a USB drive. "Patricia forced me out when I questioned her budgets," he said. "This is bank records, emails, fake invoices. She's been stealing for years." I plugged the drive in, my pulse racing. The files showed $80 in HOA funds diverted to Patricia's cousin, disguised as pool maintenance and landscaping. It was the kind of evidence I'd used to bust crime rings, and now it was my weapon against Patricia. The OA's next move was a public meeting, billed as a community safety forum. I knew it was a trap. Patricia's chance to rally her loyalists and cement the pool ban. The community center was packed, the air thick with tension. Patricia stood at the podium, her smile polished but her eyes darting. We're here to protect Oak Ridge's legacy, she began, flashing a slide of our house. Certain residents have defied our rules, threatening our harmony with unauthorized access to amenities. The racism was coded but clear, her words stoking murmurs from her allies. I stood, my voice cutting through the room. Harmony, you mean like locking my son out of the pool, Patricia? Like fining the Garcias for their kids playing? Your verified ownership. Rule is a lie, and we've got the deed to prove it. I held up Mrs. Garcia's receipts. You've been targeting families like ours for years, and we're done. Mr. Chen stood next, his voice calm but lethal. She's also stealing your money. I have bank records, 80,000 gone. No explanation. The crowd gasped, Patricia's allies shouting, but Mrs. Garcia's voice rose above them. She fined us $30,000 for nothing. Where's that money? The room erupted, neighbors demanding answers, Patricia's gavel useless against the tide. She tried to regain control, her voice shrill. This is slander. You're tearing Oak Ridge apart. But the momentum was mine. Aisha stood, holding up her complaint. The federal government's watching, Patricia. Your rules violate fair housing laws. The crowd roared, some cheering, others stunned. Patricia's face was Aisha, her empire cracking. I sat back, watching her unravel. She thought she could bully us with fines and locks, thought her HOA was above the law. She didn't know I'd spent a decade building stings, that Javier was running her financials through FBI databases, that Aisha's Hyde contact was ready to pounce. The meeting ended in chaos, but I walked out with a calm certainty Patricia was walking into my trap, and I was about to spring it. The HOA meeting had been a fracture in Patricia's empire, her control slipping as neighbors turned against her, but I knew she wouldn't go quietly. She'd lash out like a cornered predator, desperate to crush us before her lies unraveled. My sting operation was nearly ready, wired with evidence from Mr. Chen, Javier's FBI probe, and Aisha's SHID complaint. Every step Patricia took was a misstep into my trap, but the next week tested my patience like never before. She wasn't just fighting for her pool ban, she was fighting to erase my family from Oak Ridge, and she was willing to burn everything down to do it. Her next strike came in the form of a lawsuit delivered by a process server who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The packet, stamped with the OA's logo, accused me of slander, property devaluation, and breach of covenant for opposing the pool ban. It demanded 75 Zalos in damages and an injunction to bar Caleb from all HA amenities permanently. The claims were laughably flimsy, but the intent was clear: intimidate us into submission. Naomi read it at the kitchen table, her voice shaking. Malik, they're trying to bankrupt us. I took her hand, my FBI training keeping me steady. It's a bluff, Naomi. They're scared, and I'm about to make them regret this. But her fear lingered, and I felt a surge of rage. Patricia was attacking our home, our peace, and I was done letting her terrorize my family. The lawsuit wasn't her only move. Patricia doubled down on the pool ban, hiring private security guards to patrol the gate, their radios crackling as they turned away and verified residents. Caleb saw them on his way home, their glares following him like he was a criminal. He came in quiet, his swim bag untouched. They said, I'm banned for life. Dad, he said, his voice flat but his eyes wet. I hugged him, my heart breaking. They're wrong, son. You're getting that pool back. His small nod was a spark, but the hurt in him fueled me. Patricia wasn't just locking a gate. She was stealing my son's sense of belonging, and that was a crime I'd make her answer for. Her smear campaign grew vicious. New flyers appeared, now naming me directly. Malik Turner threatens Oak Ridge's future. They accused me of inciting division and defying community values, with dog whistles like outsiders tearing us apart. At the grocery store, Naomi overheard neighbors whispering, some crossing the street to avoid her. One night, a brick sailed through our garage window, shattering glass across Caleb's bike. No note, but the message was clear. Naomi swept up the shards, her hands trembling. Malik, this is getting dangerous, she said. I boarded up the window, my voice calm, but my resolve ironclad. They're desperate, Naomi. That means we're close. But as I held her, I knew I had to end this before it escalated further. I called Javier, who'd hit pay dirt. Patricia's shell company's linked to a bigger scam, he said. Her cousin's firm got $200,000 in HOA contracts. No bids, no work done. We're talking felony fraud. I grinned, picturing the indictment. Aisha was ready too. Her HOA complaint now backed by a federal investigator named Sonia Patel, a sharp lawyer who'd dismantled discriminatory HOAs before. Your case is airtight, Sonia told me. The pool ban violates the Fair Housing Act, and we've got complaints from 5 other families. Latinos, Asians, all targeted. She set a county hearing, promising to subpoena Patricia's financials. The net was tightening, but I wanted the takedown to be public. A spectacle Patricia couldn't spin. My allies were growing. Mrs. Garcia rallied more neighbors, including the Paddles, who'd been fined for their unapproved mailbox. At a quiet meeting in her backyard, they shared stories of Patricia's harassment, fines for loud music, demands to blend in. Mr. Chen's evidence gave them courage, and Mrs. Garcia's fire matched mine. "We're with you," she said. "Let's end this." Their support was a lifeline, but I kept my FBI roll close, letting them think I was just a determined dad. Only Javier and Aisha knew the truth, and they were ready to help me spring the trap. The county hearing was the stage I needed. Held in the courthouse, it drew a crowd, neighbors, reporters, even a news van. Patricia arrived with her lawyer, Greg, her smile forced, her hands clutching her purse. Sonia opened, presenting the pool ban as a violation of federal law, backed by our deed, the Garcia's receipts, and Had's findings. Aisha followed, showing Mr. Chen's bank records, detailing $200 in stolen HOA funds. "This isn't just discrimination," she said. "It's a criminal scheme to exclude families like the Turners." The gallery murmured, neighbors exchanging shocked glances. I took the floor, my voice carrying the weight of a decade in the FBI. "Patricia Conway banned my son from the pool, claiming we're not verified owners," I said. "She's targeted us, Black, Latino, Asian families, with fake rules and fines, all to keep Oak Ridge pure." I held up the brick from our garage. "This is her work, thrown to scare us out. But we're not leaving." The crowd roared, Patricia's allies squirming. Greg tried to dismiss the evidence as irrelevant. But Sonia wasn't having it. "We're subpoenaing your client's accounts," she said, staring at Patricia. "Explain the $200,000 died." Patricia's testimony was a disaster. She claimed the pool ban was for safety, but Sonia grilled her on the shell company. "Where's the money, Miss Conway?" Patricia stammered. "It's accounting errors." The lie crumbled, the gallery jeering. Mrs. Garcia stood, her voice fierce. "You fined my kids for playing. You're a thief." Other neighbors joined, airing years of grievances. Patricia's lawyer slumped, and I saw panic in her eyes. She'd expected me to back down, to let her fines and bricks break us. She didn't know I'd built stings that took down cartels, that Javier was finalizing a federal warrant, that Sonia's keyed probe was just the start. The hearing ended with the crowd chanting for justice, and I knew the real sting was coming. A trap Patricia couldn't escape, and I was about to pull the trigger. The county hearing had left Patricia reeling, her empire of lies crumbling under the weight of Mr. Chen's evidence and the crowd's fury. But I knew she'd make one last desperate grab for power, a final attempt to crush us before the law closed in. My sting operation was ready, years of FBI training distilled into a trap so tight she'd never slip free. Javier's warrant was in motion, Sonia's high probe was escalating, and Aisha's legal filings were locked and loaded. Patricia thought she was fighting a stubborn neighbor, a black dad she could bully into silence. She didn't know she'd crossed Special Agent Malik Turner, and today, in front of Oak Ridge and the world, I was going to make her pay for every fine, every flyer, every tear she'd caused my family. Patricia's final move was as bold as it was reckless. She called an emergency HOA board meeting at the community center, claiming it was to restore order after the hearing. I knew it was her last stand, a chance to rally her dwindling allies and push through the pool ban permanently. Javier called me that morning, his voice sharp. "We've got her cousin's firm dead to rights, $200 in fraud, wire transfers to Patricia's personal account. The warrant's live, and I'm sending agents." "You want in?" I grinned, my pulse steady. "Set it up. I'm ending this today." I wired a hidden recorder, a trick I'd used in a dozen stings, and headed to the meeting, my FBI badge tucked in my pocket, ready for the reveal. The community center was packed, the air electric with tension. Neighbors filled the seats. "Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Carter." Chen, the paddles, and dozens more, their faces a mix of hope and anger. Reporters lined the back, cameras rolling, thanks to Aisha's tip to the local news. Patricia stood at the podium, her smile forced, her hands gripping the gavel like a lifeline. "We're here to protect Oak Ridge," she began, her voice trembling. "The pool ban ensures fairness, and we won't let troublemakers divide us." She flashed a new slide, a photo of Caleb at the pool gate, captioned, "Unauthorized access." The racism was blatant now, and the crowd stirred, some shouting in protest. I stood, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Fairness? You banned my son from the pool with a fake rule. Patricia, you fined Black, Latino, and Asian families for years, stealing their money to line your pockets." I held up Mr. Chen's bank records. $200,000 in HA funds. Gone to your cousin's fake company. Explain that. The gallery erupted, Patricia's allies shouting, but Mrs. Garcia's voice rose above them. "You fined my kids $3,000 for playing. You're a liar, mystery." Chen waved his USB drive. "It's all here. Emails, invoices, fraud." Patricia's lawyer, Greg, tried to interrupt, but the crowd drowned him out, chanting, "Thief, thief." Patricia's face was a shen, her gavel useless. "This is an outrage," she shrieked. "You're slandering me." I stepped closer, my recorder capturing every word. "Slander? I've got evidence, Patricia, and I've got something else." The room hushed, all eyes on me. I pulled my FBI badge from my pocket, holding it high. "I'm Special Agent Malik Turner, FBI. You've been running a criminal scheme, fraud, discrimination, theft. and you're done. Gasps rippled through the crowd, cameras flashing, Patricia's jaw dropping. Greg sputtered, but I wasn't finished. You targeted my family thinking we'd run. You forgot who I am. Before she could respond, the doors burst open. Javier and 2 FBI agents strode in, warrant in hand. Patricia Conway, you're under arrest for wire fraud and embezzlement, Javier said, his voice booming. The crowd roared as an agent cuffed her, her sobs echoing as they led her out. Reporters swarmed, neighbors cheering, Mrs. Garcia hugging Mr. Chen. Aisha caught my eye, her smile fierce. You got her, Malik. I nodded, but my thoughts were on Caleb and Naomi, waiting at home. This wasn't just a bust, it was justice for every family Patricia had hurt. The fallout was swift. Sonia's HOA report confirmed the pool ban violated the Fair Housing Act, slapping the HOA with 100,000 in fines and ordering its dissolution. Aisha's lawsuit won us 25,000 in damages, but the real victory was the state's takeover, appointing Mr. Chen to oversee a new, transparent board. Patricia's trial made headlines. Convicted of fraud, she faced 7 years in prison and sold her house to cover legal fees. Her cousin's firm collapsed, and Oak Ridge's standards were rewritten. No more racist rules, no more unchecked power. The pool reopened, free for all residents. Caleb dove in on the first day, his laps strong and joyful, Naomi cheering from the sidelines. I stood beside her, our hands clasped, watching our son reclaim what was his. You did this? She said, her voice soft. I shook my head. We did. That evening, we hosted a barbecue by the pool, neighbors filling the deck. Black, Latino, Asian, white, all laughing together. Mrs. Garcia brought empanadas, Mr. Patel grilled, and Caleb led a cannonball contest, his laughter healing the wounds of the fight. As the sun set, I gathered Caleb and Naomi by the pool's edge, pointing to the water glinting under the lights. This is ours, I said. Not just the pool, but the fight, the win, the home we built. Caleb grinned, his goggles slung around his neck. Like a mission, Dad. Like the FBI, I laughed, pulling him close. Exactly, kid. Naomi kissed my cheek, her eyes shining. You're our hero. I held them both, my heart full. Patricia had tried to ban us, to break us, to erase us with her racist rules and stolen money. She didn't know I was an FBI agent, that my family's love was stronger than her hate, that I'd spent a decade crafting stings to bring down people like her. Our home was more than a house. It was our legacy, our defiance, our proof we belonged. And as the stars came out, with Caleb splashing and Oak Ridge alive with new hope, I knew no one would ever take that from us again.